more time. There we go. So Maxim number 54 from Chateau Heartiste. A woman's happiness is inversely proportional to efforts to accommodate her demands. Corollary to Maxim number 54. The more a woman's demands are catered to, the more irrational will her future demands become. Okay. So Maxim number 54, a woman's happiness is inversely proportional to the efforts to accommodate her demands. Again, when you try to please women, it displeases them. They don't want pussy pleasers. They want men who are doing their own thing, doing interesting things. They want to hop aboard your lifestyle. That's why when you try to interject or try to pick up her habits or go along with her schedule or her stuff, it tends to turn women off. And it'll be subtle, especially in the beginning, but you can see a lot of this, the inverse proportional efforts to accommodate her demands. When you see it in like couples that are starting to go south, like he's become a little bit too beta, or they're married and he becomes a little bit too beta and she wants away from him. And the harder he tries, the more he does, it comes down to the guy where you'll see like the frantic husband going, "What do you want? What do you want? What do you want me to do?" And she's like a nuclear explosion, when what he really should be doing is pulling back and doing less. Take care of himself. Focus in on himself. Cut off the money. Cut off the access to good things. He should be taking care of himself, but his default is to beta and to accommodate her desires, and all she wants is to get away from him. When he should be pulling back, creating dread, making sure that he's attractive to other women. Women work best when they're competing against other women for her husband's attention. And that tends to even things out. That's where dread comes in. But what happens, and this is a very slow process, kind of like water dripping on a rock, if you want to think about it. And you don't realize it at first, but meeting her demands, her ever increasing demands, will slowly erode the quality of the relationship. So a woman's happiness is inversely proportional to efforts to accommodate her demands. And one of the best examples I can give, and almost every guy can relate to this, is in a guy kind of explained this to me very early on in fitness. Nobody's off at 5 o'clock ever. We always work till 7, 8, or 9, because we work when people, we work around the clock, but we work when other people are off their normal 9 to 5. But my wife wanted me home by 5. Well, 5 is when things start picking up, and he was like, "Look, you got to understand that, you can start getting home at 6, and try to cut the difference." He said, "But it won't be enough. Eventually it'll be 5:30. She wants you home by 5:30, then 5. Then what? Why can't you cut out early at 4:30 and be home early?" There will always be ever increasing demands. So I just would say, "Hey, I'll be home as soon as I get off." And I'd probably usually walk in the door about 7 or 8 o'clock. So, because that's when, this is your wife says, "What time do you get off?" You say, "Oh, I'll be home by 8. Because she doesn't need to know when you get off. She needs to know when you're going to be home by. So that's the real deal. It's going to be an ever increasing demands for whatever. I mean, it's just like she demands an SUV. She's going to demand a nicer SUV down the road. I mean, it always increases. So if you start low or you don't meet the demands, it's a lot easier to manage. It doesn't mean don't give anything. It doesn't mean, but know that overly extending yourself has an eroding effect on her admiration, her attraction to you. It's the exact opposite of what we respond to. A girl starts bending over backwards, you notice it. She starts doing more for you, you notice it. You tend to reward that. For women, it's the exact opposite. They want to bend over backwards for you. They want to go the extra mile for you. they want to put out more effort to a higher value man. So a woman's happiness is inversely proportional to efforts to accommodate her demands. The less you give in, the less you give, the happier she'll be. All of this, none of it makes sense when you hear it. It even sounds abusive, but it's how things actually work. And that's why game is game. And if you put this out in front of your normal friends, they will reject it and have all kinds of epileptic fits over it. And so you just have to know that this is how it works. And the more a woman's demands are catered to, the more irrational will her future demands become, all the way up to divorce court. And then she's demanding 50% or more of your income and property, and it's not a good scene. So that's the real deal. You have to realize that, and guys that get this innately just seem to do better with women. They are skeptical, and I don't know if it's because somebody kind of keys them into it early on, or they're just a naturally skeptical guy. They're like, she'll be okay. There's a lot of like, there's somewhat, you're like, aren't you going to like answer the phone? No, she'll be all right. These guys actually have happier wives and girlfriends than the guys that are like answering the phone in the middle of a meeting, texting back in the middle of a meeting. It never goes well. They're not happy. The wives aren't happy. No one's happy. So always a measured reaction to demands on your time or resources from women, because just like Maxim number 54 says, and all this is counterintuitive, so you have to actually think about it. A woman's happiness is inversely proportional to efforts to accommodate her demands. Corollary to Maxim number 54, the more a woman's demands are catered to, the more irrational will her future demands become. Remember, we're the only people that that buy her a house, buy her a car, and have children with her, and then she says, no, we're not having sex. I mean, I saw that earlier today. I was like, guys really kind of like have to wrap their heads around that it's not the best deal when it gets out of your hands. So be measured, be careful with meeting demands. And that's about all. Because each demand is a unique proposition. Next tweet. Let's see what else we have here. A good question, Bouncer. But if doing less is the key, then when can you accommodate? It's measured. That's what I was trying to say. We say calibration, just like when you're calibrating, it should be a calibrated response to knowing, what's good enough. Generally, if you tend to go over, and you can say no, girls actually respond to no better than you would think, especially if you start them from the very beginning with certain no's. They want you to say no at times to some of their requests or demands, because it kind of keeps everything within the lanes. So you can say no, or you can a measured response is best. But what the Maxim does say is when you bend over backwards every time, it's just going to be an ever increasing list of demands. And you see it all the time. And the women aren't any happier. I mean, if they increase their demands and you increase your response and they were happier, that would make sense, but they're not happier. Women don't like it. They don't know why they don't like it. They don't care. They just know they don't like it. So each response should be a measured response. You have to. It's a partnership, but you have to make it measured and realistic. Next tweet. So